Hi there. I'm Maddie. At my own promotion party, the one I thought was for me, my boss gave the role to someone else. Right there, in front of everyone. And I smiled. I toasted. I clapped. But inside, something cracked. I spent 5 years building that company. Stayed late, trained people, fixed messes no one else wanted. And then, just like that, I was invisible. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because what came after, the lies, the silence, the betrayal from people I trusted, it went deeper than any promotion. Tonight was supposed to be mine. I spent hours choosing the right dress, curling my hair just enough, even rehearsing my smile in the mirror like a fool. This night wasn't just another company dinner. It was the night. The one I'd worked 5 years for. I arrived early, watched the servers light the tiny golden bulbs overhead, saw the name cards laid out across the long white tablecloth. My name was in the center, right next to Marston's. I took it as a sign. Every inch of me buzzed with nervous anticipation. For 5 years, I showed up. I cleaned up messes that didn't belong to me, stayed late without being asked, helped new hires feel like they belonged, even when I didn't feel that way myself. I played the long game. I waited my turn. Marston had said it more than once. "You're next, Maddie. I see everything you do." So I believed him. The room filled quickly. Chatter, laughter, the occasional pop of champagne corks. Everyone was in high spirits. Why wouldn't they be? Sales were up, bonuses were on the table, and tonight someone was about to be named our new senior manager. Everyone knew it. I felt it. Marston stood at the head of the table, glass of wine in one hand, his signature smug grin in place. He tapped the glass with his fork, gently, rhythmically. The room silenced like someone had hit pause. My stomach flipped. He looked around the table and smiled. "Tonight," he began, "I want to recognize someone who's truly raised the bar. In a short time, they've brought fresh energy, creative insight, and a level of leadership that's rare." My heart pounded. I tried to breathe slowly, look calm. I even leaned forward a little, just in case the photographer caught my reaction. He continued, "It's not often we see someone step in and make this kind of impact, in just 3 months. 3 months? I blinked. Marston turned slightly toward the other end of the table. "Lyra," he said, raising his glass, "you've done more than we could have hoped for, which is why I'm thrilled to announce your promotion, senior manager, effective immediately." Applause broke out instantly. Glasses clinked. Someone whooped. I sat frozen, smile faltering mid-rise. My hands clenched beneath the table, knuckles white around the stem of my champagne flute. I heard someone say, "She deserves it!" and another voice go, "Well done, Lyra!" The blood drained from my face. 3 months. I'd built half the systems this company still used. I'd rewritten training manuals, recovered client accounts on the brink of collapse, mentored Lyra for God's sake. And now I was watching her soak in praise meant for me. Marston finally looked at me, like he'd only just remembered I was there. "And of course, Maddie," he added, his voice a shade too loud, "we see you too. Your consistency, your loyalty, always appreciated." That was it. No title, no acknowledgement of the late nights, the missed holidays, the birthdays spent at my desk, just a pat on the head, like I was a well-behaved pet. Then he smirked. "Maybe you could take a page from Lyra's playbook. Adaptability is the name of the game these days." I swear the room tilted. Someone at the far end laughed too loud. Lyra blushed and tried to wave it off. "Oh, stop," she said, but the damage was done. That line, "Take a page from Lyra's playbook," it echoed in my ears like a slap. Marston knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't an accident. It was a message. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I clapped. I smiled. I even leaned toward Lyra and said, "Congrats." Because that's what women like me are taught to do. Be gracious. Be small. Don't make a scene. But inside, something broke. I barely tasted the rest of the meal. I smiled and nodded through conversations I wasn't part of. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear. My body was present, but I was somewhere else, replaying every meeting where Marston had praised me, every time he'd said, "Just hang in there a little longer." Liar. I thought about the email I'd drafted weeks ago, back when I first felt something shift. I hadn't sent it, just saved it in drafts. Just in case, I told myself. But maybe I'd known. After dessert, I slipped out early, unnoticed. The air outside was cool and sharp. It felt like freedom. I stood on the curb for a long minute, phone in hand. I opened my inbox. Found the draft. Subject, resignation, effective immediately. I hovered my finger over send. I wanted to push it. I wanted to walk away. But I didn't. Not yet. I don't know why I stopped myself. Maybe it was hope, some stupid, stubborn part of me, thinking this might all still be a misunderstanding. Or maybe I wasn't ready to burn it all down. Not yet. I barely slept. My pillow still smelled like the hairspray I used for the party, as if it hadn't fully accepted the night was over. I got dressed in silence, skipped breakfast, and walked into the office before most of the lights were on. It felt like walking into someone else's life, familiar, but wrong in ways I couldn't explain. The front desk girl greeted me with her usual fake cheer. "Morning, Maddie. You're early." I managed a smile, tight and clipped. I made my way past rows of empty cubicles, past the break room still humming from the overnight fridge. My desk was exactly the same, as if the night before hadn't happened, but everything inside me felt cracked, off balance. I sat down, opened my laptop, and stared at my inbox like it might give me a reason not to leave. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I was tired. Maybe Marston just made a poor decision. People mess up. My dad used to say that when Mom caught him lying. "It was just a bad call, babe. I'm only human." Somehow, that never made it okay, did it? At 9 sharp, our team gathered for the Friday sync. Marston strolled in 5 minutes late, coffee in hand, like he owned the air around him. The way people laughed at his dry jokes made my stomach twist. "Let's keep this short," he said, settling in at the head of the table. "I know we're all riding high off last night." He glanced around the room like he was proud of himself. "I just want to highlight one incredible piece of work that really pushed our last campaign into the win column. Lyra," he smiled. "Your innovative approach to the digital rollout, that's what made the difference." My eyes shot up. "What?" "That rollout, the concept, the content flow, even the pitch deck, was mine. Every chart, every graphic, every late-night tweak. I had done it. She had helped, sure. She reviewed a few slides. But the entire backbone came from me. People clapped. Someone said, "Nicely done!" I sat frozen. My throat didn't tighten. My chest didn't ache. Instead, I felt a strange hollowness, like my body was there, but I had quietly stepped out of it. Then came the line that snapped me right back in. "That kind of forward thinking," Marston added, "is what leadership looks like." Leadership. He didn't say my name, didn't even glance my way. But I felt the weight of what he was doing. It was calculated. That's what shook me. It wasn't a slip. It was a statement. When the meeting broke, I gathered my things slowly, trying to make sense of it. Inez walked past, leaned in just enough for me to hear. "Wait, didn't you lead that campaign?" I gave the smallest nod. "Yeah, I did." Her eyebrows drew together. She started to say something else, but hesitated. "That's weird," she muttered, then walked away. Weird. That's one word for it. I walked to the kitchen for coffee I didn't want, just to avoid people. Lyra was already there, standing by the counter, chatting with Rachel. When she saw me, she offered a sheepish smile. "Oh, hey, Maddie. I was just saying how the rollout was really a team effort. You laid the groundwork." I stared at her, expression flat. She didn't sound guilty. She sounded coached. Then Marston's voice floated in from the hallway behind us. "That's what I love about Lyra. She doesn't just follow a plan, she owns it." The words hit like ice down my spine. I didn't say a word. just walked back to my desk and opened my personal folder. I pulled up old emails, time-stamped strategy notes, early wireframes, drafts I had sent weeks ago. The evidence was there. But what was I going to do? Send a PowerPoint titled, "Proof I Did the Work"? I thought back to the night I stayed until midnight tweaking that landing page while the rest of the team drank at some rooftop happy hour. I remembered the look on Marston's face when I first showed him the strategy. Impressed, nodding slowly, saying, "Now this could work." And now it was Lyra's win. That was the moment something inside me stopped pretending. I didn't storm into his office. I didn't send the email. Not yet. But I stopped trusting smiles, and I started paying attention. And what I began to uncover next made my silence dangerous. I didn't need anyone to say it out loud. The signs were already there. Quiet, subtle, but deliberate. I started noticing little things, like how the weekly strategy call I used to lead was suddenly rescheduled, and I wasn't on the new invite. Or how the email threads about upcoming initiatives included names I barely recognized, but not mine. Even the Slack channel I had created for the fourth quarter campaign, archived without a word. I knew it wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. People get shuffled around, roles shift. But there's a difference between change and erasure. I began paying closer attention, tracking meetings, email chains, calendar invites, watching how decisions were made, and more importantly, who was in the room when they were. One morning, I walked past Inez's desk and casually asked, "Hey, did they move the Q4 Ops planning meeting?" She glanced up from her screen, hesitated, then frowned. No, it's today at 3. "Oh, weird," I said. "I didn't see it on my calendar." She bit her lip, clearly uncomfortable. "I think they switched it to a smaller group. You're not on the list?" My stomach sank. I walked back to my desk without saying a word, opened my access settings, and checked the group permissions. My name had been removed from the committee entirely. No message, no explanation. It wasn't an oversight. It was surgical. That was the day I stopped trying to be patient. The following week, I saw something that made my jaw tighten. Marston assigned a high-profile pitch, one I had been preparing for weeks, to Matt, a junior analyst barely a year out of grad school. I'd already met the client over Zoom twice, even sent a follow-up deck. When I asked Marston about it, he didn't blink. "We thought Matt might bring a fresh energy to the table," he said, shrugging. "Clients like seeing new blood." I stared at him. "You mean young?" He smiled like I was being difficult. "Just trust the process, Maddie. You've had your turn." I wanted to laugh. My turn had been 5 years of quiet consistency, of covering for people like Matt when they forgot deadlines. Now, suddenly, he was the future. I walked into the meeting room later that afternoon and watched Matt fumble through a half-prepped pitch. Marston nodded along like he was watching a prodigy. I sat at the far end of the table, invisible. It wasn't that I wasn't seen. It was that I was being replaced. Not because I wasn't good, but because I was no longer convenient. After that meeting, I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I just went back to my desk and began collecting things. Emails, time-stamped project documents, screenshots of team chats. I opened a private folder on my desktop and labeled it, "If Needed," and then I copied it to an external drive. I wasn't preparing for a tantrum. I was building a record. One night, well after most of the floor had gone home, I sat staring at my monitor in the dark. The only light came from the screen and the city glowing through the glass windows. The silence was comforting, clean, honest. I thought about all the times I stayed late, fixed what others broke, and swallowed my voice to keep the peace. I remembered how Mom used to say, "Sometimes, to keep the family together, you have to be the quiet one." She said that every time Dad forgot her birthday, or came home late, or pretended not to hear her crying in the kitchen. I had carried that same silence into this place, and it was killing me. That Friday evening, as I packed my things for the weekend, Marston walked past my desk with a smirk and clapped Matt on the shoulder. "Now that's what next-gen leadership looks like," he said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I didn't even turn around. Instead, I clicked on the folder marked "If Needed," dragged it onto my external drive, and ejected it. I didn't know what I would do with it yet, but I knew this. I wasn't going to keep waiting for someone to rescue me. I was done waiting for fairness to find me. The thing about holding it together every day is, eventually, the seams give. Since the promotion slap, each morning felt heavier, like I was walking through air thick with suspicion and fake smiles. Every click of a keyboard, every glance exchanged in a hallway felt loaded. I kept my head down, mostly to avoid giving anyone the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. But deep down, I knew I wasn't staying quiet out of dignity anymore. It was strategy. I was listening, watching, waiting. Then came Monday. It started like any other. I got in early, poured myself burnt coffee, and opened my laptop. My inbox had 32 unread messages, most of them noise. But one subject line caught me. Recognizing Agile Leadership, Q4 Direction. It was from Marston, sent to the entire division. I opened it slowly, already knowing something was off. His tone was polished, almost warm. As we shift into Q4, I want to spotlight the kind of leadership that reflects the future of our company. Adaptability, innovation, and the courage to challenge the status quo. So far, typical Marston buzzwords. Then came the real punch. Lyra has consistently exemplified these values. Her ability to pivot, execute, and lead with a modern lens has driven results worth emulating. In contrast, we must be mindful that clinging to rigid systems often stifles growth and ultimately becomes a barrier to progress. My name wasn't in it, but I might as well have been printed in bold. The message was clear. Old methods, old voices, like mine, no longer mattered. And Lyra? She was the future, all packaged in a perfectly professional email with just enough deniability to be called harmless. I stared at the screen, heart pounding not from surprise, but from the sick familiarity of it. It reminded me of how my brother used to tell our mom I was overreacting every time he went through my stuff. How he'd smile and say, "I was just organizing, chill," and somehow I'd end up being the problem. This was no different. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it to HR or scream into the void. I just sat there and let it burn. I scrolled through the comments piling up under the message, "Well deserved, Lyra," and "We're lucky to have her," followed by a handful of emojis. And still, not one person asked the question screaming inside me. Where was I in all of this? Inez passed by my desk about an hour later. She leaned in without looking directly at me and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, barely. Then came a ping. A private message from Chelsea on the marketing team. That email was cold. Just wanted to say I noticed. It was the smallest thing, but it mattered. That someone else saw it. That I wasn't completely insane. Still, the air around me felt like glass. Fragile, sharp, ready to shatter. Around lunch, I slipped away to the restroom and locked myself in the last stall. The noise of the office faded behind the bathroom's sterile silence. My hands rested on my thighs. Still, heavy. I didn't cry. I hadn't in weeks. I think I forgot how. Instead, I seethed. I gave this place the best years of my life, I thought. I canceled vacations, missed birthdays, let relationships fall apart. All because I believed loyalty mattered. And what did they give me? A footnote in someone else's highlight reel. I leaned my head back against the cold wall and whispered, "Not anymore." That evening, as I was packing up, I saw Marston walking out of the conference room. Alone. I didn't plan it. I just moved. Like my feet had already decided for me. "Got a minute?" I asked. He looked surprised but smiled. "For you?" "Always." We stepped into the hallway near the glass doors. I kept my voice calm, measured. I read your email. Yeah? He gave that salesman grin. Just trying to show appreciation where it's due. That's what leaders do. I nodded. Appreciation's great, but you might want to be careful about the shade you throw in the process. His brow twitched. If there's one more message like that, I said slowly, I won't just leave this company. I'll take everything you pretended wasn't mine, and make sure people see who really built it. He didn't say anything, just stood there blinking, like I'd spoken a language he didn't understand. I turned and walked away. Turns out, he took that as a challenge. A week passed, quietly, too quietly. No more digs in public emails, no sly remarks. Just silence. The kind that hums beneath your skin like a warning. Then, Monday morning, my calendar pinged. A meeting update. I opened it with a flicker of hope, thinking maybe someone had finally remembered to do their job. Performance review. Rescheduled, to be determined. Reason. Scheduling conflicts. Third time this quarter. Same excuse. I stared at the screen. My hand hovered over the trackpad for a second. Then I clicked delete. The window vanished, but the fire it lit inside me didn't. I stood, grabbed the folder I'd been updating for weeks, and walked straight into Marston's office without knocking. He looked up from his laptop almost amused. Maddie, hi? Everything all right? You tell me, I said. 3 delays, no explanation, and the year's almost over. He leaned back, that same corporate casual tone ready on his tongue. We're still compiling feedback from your peers, cross-checking project outcomes. You know how it is. You've had 5 years of feedback, I said, setting the folder on his desk. All of it's right there. Client retention, campaign success, onboarding results, employee mentorship. Everything I've done while you kept dangling that title like it was candy on a string. He didn't even open the folder. This isn't personal, Maddie. You're right, I said, voice flat. It's calculated. His smile faltered. You've been using bureaucracy to keep me in place. You know exactly how much weight that review holds for promotions, raises, credibility. And you've postponed it over and over like my work doesn't matter. Or like I don't. He tilted his head, folding his hands. I think you're getting too emotional. You don't want to make impulsive moves right now. I almost laughed. My father used to say the same thing every time he forgot a promise, I said. Don't overreact. It's not a big deal. But when you keep doing it, that's not a mistake. That's a message. Marston's eyes narrowed. You need to be careful, Maddie. You start escalating this, it can burn bridges. Doors don't always reopen. I leaned in slightly. I'm not looking for open doors anymore. I'm building my own. He tried to say something else, but I was already walking out. Back at my desk, I sat down and exhaled. Not relief, not anger. Something deeper, something final. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had facts, I had receipts, and I wasn't asking for a seat at the table. I was about to flip the table. A few minutes later, a small icon popped up in the corner of my screen. Read, receipt. Your message, Q3 reporting accuracy, has been opened. Timestamp, today, 11:42 a.m. By Admin Override. That email was from 6 weeks ago. There was no reason anyone should be reading it now. Then came another alert. Security check in progress. Admin access detected. I froze. They were digging, so they were done pretending too. The alert stayed on my screen longer than it should have. My cursor hovered over the little red X in the corner, but I didn't click it. I just stared at the words, admin access triggered, like they might blink away if I waited long enough. They didn't. I clicked into the back end of my account, the audit logs tucked away in a hidden panel most employees never think to check. I'd only learned about it because I'd trained new hires before, back when I was still trusted, back when I still believed I belonged here. There it was. 3 instances of internal override logins tied to my credentials. One last Thursday, one over the weekend, one this morning. I felt it first in my stomach, a churn, a clench. Not fear, not shock, just something like disgust. That quiet kind of disgust you feel when someone you once trusted rifles through your drawers and then acts like you're overreacting. I stood up slowly, grabbed my badge, and headed toward the IT department. The hallway felt colder than usual, like the walls themselves were watching me. When I walked into the tech wing, the room hushed. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to make me sure I'd interrupted something. Ben, a junior support tech, glanced up. "Hey, Maddie, everything okay?" I smiled, polite but tight. "Quick question. Was there any routine maintenance done on my email account lately?" He paused. I could see it in his eyes. He knew, or at least he'd heard something. "I mean, sometimes there's back-end syncing for access logs, archiving, that kind of thing," he said, choosing each word like they were eggshells. "Right," I nodded. "But would that include an executive override?" He froze for half a second, then said, "There was a request, from above. We just follow access protocols." I held his gaze. "I get it. It's never personal when you're the one holding the key, right?" He didn't answer. I thanked him, turned, and walked out. My steps were calm, my face was still, but something inside me had clicked into place. Back at my desk, I pulled out my external drive and opened the folder labeled "If Needed." I added screenshots of the override logs, labeled them, time-stamped everything. Then I opened a blank document and began writing my resignation letter. It started clinical, cold. Then I stopped, deleted 2 paragraphs, and rewrote it. Not softer, but sharper. I kept it factual, professional, but not apologetic. Next, I drafted another document. This one was titled Workplace Misconduct, Internal Breach, bullet points, evidence links, policy violations, a clear timeline, no emotion, just data. No matter what they'd find in my inbox, they couldn't erase the pattern they'd left behind. At 2:12 p.m., I sent the resignation letter to HR. I CC'd the legal team. The subject line was simple: formal resignation, effective immediately. I ended the message with one line: "I will be available for documentation handover. I will not be available for further discussion." Then I logged out. People stared as I stood up and calmly placed my company badge in an envelope. Inez watched me from her desk, wide-eyed. A few others stopped pretending to type. Nobody said anything. I didn't owe them a goodbye. As I zipped my bag and slung it over my shoulder, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Is this Madeline Pierce?" a familiar voice asked. "Yes." "We've been waiting for you," he said, smooth and clear. "Can you start Monday?" It was Dorian Hale. And just like that, I wasn't walking out empty-handed. I was walking into something bigger. The second I stepped off the elevator and out into the cold Seattle air, I sent one text. "Need 10 minutes. Meet me in the back room." Inez replied within seconds. "Give me 5. We met in the small, forgotten conference space near HR, glass-walled, quiet, and usually empty by design. I dropped my bag, plugged in my drive, and told her everything. The admin overrides, the deleted meetings, the surveillance, and the call. "Dorian Hale?" she whispered, brows lifted. "The Dorian Hale?" I nodded. "He's already offered. I start Monday." Inez didn't smile. Instead, she exhaled through her nose and said what only real allies say. "Good. But before you go, you need to see this." She pulled up her own laptop and opened a file she'd been quietly collecting. "I've been digging," she said. "Something's always felt off about Lyra's file." She clicked into the HR system and pointed. "Look, no application timestamp, no interview notes, no internal referrals. It's blank until this." A system log appeared on the screen. Manual insert. Executed by admin, sat exec override. August 2nd, 2023. I blinked. That's 2 days before Lyra started. Then she said it. "Her last name used to be Ryland." I froze. Inez nodded. Marston's ex-wife's maiden name. It hit like a punch I should have seen coming. The sudden rise, the rehearsed humility, the constant praise. Of course. That's why she got it all handed to her, I said slowly. It was never about her being good. It was about him protecting bloodlines. Inez's eyes met mine. And hiding it like a coward. I stood there for a moment, letting the truth settle into my bones. Then I opened my laptop and began typing. I titled the document, Leadership Ethics and Internal Conflicts of Interest. I attached the admin log screenshots, the HR anomalies, the chain of performance reviews skipped, and my own resignation letter. The timeline comparison was brutal. 5 years of documented wins versus 3 months of executive favoritism. By noon, I sent the memo directly to the board. Then I did one more thing. I requested a farewell Zoom. Told HR I wanted to thank the team, end things on a positive note. They approved it without question. At 4 p.m., faces filled the screen, 50, maybe more. Marston joined 5 minutes in, smiling like he hadn't tried to erase me from the company entirely. I cleared my throat and spoke calmly. Thank you, everyone, for the memories, for the growth, for the laughter, and for the silence. Because it was in that silence that I learned the loudest truths. The chat paused. I won't name names, I don't need to, but I want to leave you all with something useful, something about power, and how it never looks like power when it's dressed as a compliment. Someone unmuted and whispered, "Oh, wow." I smiled. If you ever feel like your voice is too small to matter, remember this. The ones who silence you are always the ones most afraid of being heard. Then I clicked End Call. 2 minutes later, Inez messaged me. The board just went into an emergency session. Marston's face looks like he saw a ghost. I powered down my laptop. I didn't want to see what came next. Not yet. For now, I stepped outside, let the wind hit my face, and allowed myself, for the first time in years, to breathe. That night, I slept for 9 hours straight, for the first time in years. There was no tossing, no staring at the ceiling while replaying conversations, no anger tucked beneath my ribs, keeping my breath shallow. I just rested. And when morning came, I opened my eyes to golden light spilling across the hardwood floors of my new apartment. My body felt different, like it belonged to me again. 2 weeks had passed since I walked out of that glass tower with nothing but a flash drive and my spine intact. And today, I walked into something better. Carter & Associates wasn't flashy. It was sharp, lean, built by people who still believed in doing good work for the right reasons. The office smelled like clean wood and ambition. Dorian met me near the elevator, hands in his pockets, smile relaxed. "You made it," he said. "I told you I would." He nodded once. "Let's get started." We were in his office later that morning, going over project histories and upcoming initiatives, when he leaned back in his chair and said casually, "You know, I actually sent you an offer 6 months ago." I looked up. "What?" He shrugged. "Through your work email. Never heard back. Figured maybe you weren't ready." My pulse quickened. "You sent it where?" "Your old company account." I froze. That was around the same time things started getting quiet. When meetings went missing. When Lyra suddenly bloomed. "Can you forward me that original message?" I asked. "I just want to check something." Dorian did. I opened my personal backup logs, found the audit trail for that date, and there it was. Message received. Deleted by admin override. No forwarding rule set. I stared at the screen. They hadn't just passed me over. They actively blocked my exit. Tried to trap me, keep me small, invisible. Like I owed them something. I didn't say a word to Dorian. I just smiled and said, "Thanks." That week, it started. First, a call from Dawson and Company. "Maddie, we heard you moved. Can we talk?" Then, a message from Graybridge Capital. "You're at Carter now? Our account's up for review." By Friday, 3 of the largest clients I'd brought in over the years had reached out. None of them needed convincing. They weren't loyal to a company. They were loyal to people. People who did the work. People like me. I didn't gloat. I didn't post a single thing online. But I did open a blank draft to Marston. I typed, "I know about the blocked offer. I know about the files. I know about everything. You underestimated the wrong person." Then I stared at it and deleted it. He knew. That was enough. Late that afternoon, I stepped out onto the rooftop terrace. Seattle's skyline stretched in every direction, painted in deep autumn gold. The wind tangled in my hair, and I closed my eyes, not to escape, but to feel fully present. My phone buzzed. Inez. She sent a single screenshot. Internal memo. Board decision. Effective immediately, Marston Whitmore will be stepping down from his role as executive director. This decision reflects recent leadership missteps and concerns raised by clients and internal stakeholders. An interim will be appointed until further notice. Beneath it, her text. You did it. It's done. I smiled. Not because I won, but because I'd finally let go of needing to. But victory wasn't the point. Freedom was. December came in quietly, with frost tracing the edges of the windows and a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. The day I stepped into my new office, corner view, clean desk, my name etched in silver on the glass, I didn't feel like I had conquered anything. I just felt home. There was no tension in my shoulders, no fire to prove myself. People nodded when I passed, not out of obligation or fear, but with that calm, unspoken respect you only earn when they know you've walked through fire and didn't flinch. I opened my laptop, sipped my coffee, and let myself settle. Inez called around noon. It's official, she said. The board confirmed it. Marston's out. Full separation. No return clause. I leaned back in my chair, eyes scanning the city outside. I'm not surprised, I replied. And I wasn't. But I also didn't celebrate. I didn't toast to karma or blast some empowering playlist. I just sat in the quiet and let the moment be what it was. He was gone. That was enough. The next morning, an unexpected name landed in my inbox. Lyra Whitmore. The subject line, I'm sorry. I clicked, mostly out of curiosity. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how much was being done behind the scenes. I thought he believed in me. I read the words twice. Then I closed the email and let it sit there, unread again. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a blank note on my desktop and wrote, Some apologies are too late, but forgiveness doesn't always need a recipient. I'd spent so long trying to be seen, to be validated by people who had no intention of recognizing me, and somewhere in the process, I forgot that my voice didn't require permission. It just needed space. This new chapter gave me that. I still caught myself flinching at certain tones, still paused before speaking in meetings, waiting for the ghost of dismissal to show up, but it never did. And slowly, I began to trust the quiet again. One afternoon, sitting in a cafe near the office, I found myself journaling. I used to think power came from being chosen. Turns out, it comes from choosing yourself. I wrote it down without thinking, then added, I used to fear being replaced. Now I know, what I bring can't be replicated. A reflection in the cafe window caught my eye. Mine. Older than I remembered, stronger too. A young intern from Carter passed by, nearly tripping over his own feet as he tried to wave and walk at the same time. I smiled and called out, Hey! If you ever feel small here, come find me. No one builds alone. He nodded, surprised, grateful, and I went back to my coffee. That moment wasn't loud. It didn't need to be, because sometimes the loudest thing a woman can do is stay. Stay grounded, stay clear. Stay in the room when the room once tried to erase her. Before we wrap up this story, let me leave you with something real. If there's one thing I've learned, one thing I wish someone had told me earlier, it's this. Your worth is not up for negotiation, not in boardrooms, not in relationships, not in silence. If they only see your value when you're halfway out the door, that's not a home, That's a trap. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes it's the bravest way to begin again. And maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've felt overlooked, underestimated. Maybe you've swallowed your voice one too many times just to keep the peace. If that's you, I see you, and I hope my story helps you stand a little taller. Now let me ask you, have you ever had to fight for your own value? Have you ever been passed over for someone who didn't earn it? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. Drop a 1 if this video spoke to you, or tell me where you're watching from. And hey, if this video didn't land for you, that's okay too. Let me know why. Let's talk about it. This space is about honesty, not perfection. If you're still watching and this message touched you even just a little, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. There's more where this came from, more truth, more stories that matter. And who knows? The next one might just be yours. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep choosing yourself.